Hey, how's it going, everyone? Welcome to Finance with Avrin. In this video, I'm giving you the top 10 savings accounts ranked by APY annual percentage yield for September 2025. Now, there's been a lot of movement since the last time I done this ranking video in July 2025. Some accounts have lowered their APYs and some accounts have actually raised their APYs. We're gonna get all into it here. I have the video organized into sections, and be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you're not already. Much appreciated. Now let's get into these graphs. Very interesting right here. As you see it on the screen, inflation versus the top savings account yield. I thought this was an interesting graph because a lot of times your money is losing to inflation. If you have your money just sitting in a checking account with a low APY or a savings account with a low APY. I mean, the national rate on savings accounts are like under 1% APY. Those don't make it on these ranking videos. Now with money sitting somewhere, sometimes in a high yield savings account, you can actually beat inflation. As you see right there on the graph from July 2015 through July 2025, you see the green line right there kind of moving in tandem with inflation a little around, sometimes higher, sometimes a little lower. And at one point you see the inflation is just going up, above 4, above 6, above 8%. And savings accounts weren't going in tandem with that. They weren't matching that. But they did go up, as you see right there, and they have surpassed the inflation amount. Now, another interesting graph I wanted to show you is how savings rates respond to Federal Reserve changes. Because when the Fed rate cuts happen, typically that means that deposit accounts lower their yields. And if we've been seeing it, if you've been locked in here with me on the channel, then you know the trajectory, the trends of the APYs for savings accounts and for CD accounts as they've been going down. You've been riding along with me, and they have been going down slowly. Sometimes the drop is a little bit steeper, as you even see it right here on this example. However, when the Fed is raising rates, it has that correlation with the deposit yields where those yields get raised as well. So you see the correlation here. I actually have a more in-depth video on the Fed rate cuts and the relationship with deposit yields. I'll leave a link to it down below as you see it right there. Check that out if you're more interested in it. But this graph is showing you right there pretty much what I'm telling you. Savings yields go down when the Fed cuts their rates. As you see right there, those are some of the banks right there: Ally, Capital One, Discover Bank. And then we see that continually happening. And of course, the Fed has kept the rate steady between that 4.25 and 4.50. However, there is a lot of talk and speculation that the Fed is going to cut the rate here in September. However, if they don't cut it in September, there's talk that they're going to cut it at least once by the end of the year. Some people are saying twice even. Some people are even saying more than that. For me personally, I'll always rather have a high yield savings account instead of a just regular savings account. Now let's briefly go over some of the things that all of these accounts have in common. So I'm not repeating it for each and every account. Now, very important, first off, all of these accounts are FDIC insured. That's their Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. So if something happens with these banks or financial institutions where they go bankrupt, something happens, your money will be protected under the FDIC insurance, typically up to that $250,000 amount for single accounts. However, there are some accounts on here that have millions of dollars of FDIC insurance because they spread out the deposits with different program banks that they have a relationship with. Now, I'll tell you about those specific accounts in the video when we get to them. Also, with all of these accounts, none of them have a monthly maintenance fee. So no $2, $3, anything tacked on every month on your account just for having it open. And also with all of these savings accounts, all the APYs are variable and subject to change. That's just standard thing with savings accounts in general. That APY you see isn't locked in for a certain amount of time or anything. It could change tomorrow. It could change next week, next month. Whenever you see this video, depending on when you see it, there may be a chance that the APY you see for that certain account is different. Also, there's no monthly minimum balance required to avoid fees. However, some of these accounts have a monthly minimum balance required to obtain the APY that they're marketing. And I'll tell you about those specific accounts when we get to them. And also, some of these accounts have initial deposit requirements where you have to deposit a certain amount for the account to be fully open. And I'll tell you about the initial deposit requirements for all of these accounts. Some of them have a certain dollar amount, some of them don't have any dollar amount. And also with all of these accounts, the financial institutions and the banks that they're provided by have a mobile app that's available on the Google Play and Apple app stores. I think that's very important in this day and age we're in, where people have, their phones with them pretty much almost all the time, where they can have access to their financial accounts on the go. And with your high yield savings account, you just want to check in, see that balance, get some motivation to increase that balance, or just do some transfers, things like that. So all of these accounts have mobile apps on the Apple and Google Play app stores. The functionality, of course, ranges and differs depending on the financial institution and bank. Some have better features, better user interfaces, and so forth. Some not as much. A good way to tell just really quickly is to look at the app in the app store and check out the screenshots. You can tell a lot from screenshots to see how much functionality functionality there is within the app, and of course the description. Now those are some items that all of these accounts have in common. Now let's get into the honorable mentions. First up here we have the Capital One 360 Performance Savings Account. It is currently at 3.50% APY. In July, this account was at 3.50%, so they've held it steady here for a couple of months. And with this account, there's no initial minimum deposit required to open the account, and the interest is compounded and credited monthly. Calculation example for this one: if you had $25,000 in this Capital One 360 Performance Savings Account at 3.50% APY with the interest compounding monthly, after 1 month, that $25,000 would turn into about $25,071.67. So after a month, you would have earned about $71.67 of interest on that $25,000. Now let's move on to the next honorable mention. It's going to be the Ally Savings Account at 3.50% APY. There is no minimum initial deposit required to open this account, and the interest is compounded daily and credited monthly. Calculation example for this one: if you had $25,000 in this Ally Savings Account at 3.50% APY with the interest compounding daily, after 1 month, you would earn about $71.77 worth of interest. Now you see the difference there with the previous account compounding interest monthly versus this account that's compounding interest daily, a difference of about 10 cents on $25,000. So compounding interest daily versus monthly is a bit negligible. You notice it more with higher balances and as it goes on longer in the account. Now let's move on to the next honorable mention here. It's going to be the Marcus by Goldman Sachs online savings account at 3.65% APY. There's no minimum initial deposit required to open this account, and the interest is compounded daily and credited monthly. This is another account like the previous two that has held the APY steady for the past couple of months. And calculation example for this one: if you had $25,000 in this Marcus by Goldman Sachs online savings account at 3.65% APY with the interest compounding daily, after 1 month, that $25,000 returned into about $25,074.90. And now let's move on to the next honorable mention. It's going to be the SoFi High Yield Savings Account at 3.80% APY. There's no initial minimum deposit required to open this account, and the interest is compounded and credited monthly. SoFi has a stipulation with that APY that they market right there. You have to have SoFi Plus in order to get that 3.80% APY. And there's two ways to get that basically right now. For SoFi Plus, you can either get it by having a direct deposit going into your SoFi savings or checking account on a normal, monthly basis, at least one, direct deposit, or you could pay $10 a month to have SoFi Plus. And now SoFi is one of the financial institutions that has a higher FDIC insurance amount available. You can have your account covered up to $3 million with SoFi with their FDIC enhanced insurance, basically where they just are spreading around your deposits to different banks. That doesn't mean you have multiple accounts with other banks that you've never heard of or that you may know of or things like that. You still have that one account with SoFi. They're just kind of behind the scenes, $250,000 here, $250,000 there, that cap of the FDIC insurance. So this is one of those banks that does have that higher FDIC insurance available if you like that. Now, as you see right there, a higher APY. SoFi has a promotion going on that you can obtain 4.50% APY. Let me show you and tell you about that. I'll leave my referral link to SoFi down in the comments if you want to check them out. You can earn a welcome bonus of up to $300 depending on your direct deposit amounts, and it goes into more detail of that if you click on the link and just go through it. I like SoFi personally. I've used the high yield savings account and their checking account. They work very well together. So that's one bonus they have going on. But then they have the increased APY going on. They have a 0.70% APY boost going on that you can obtain for up to 6 months. Now the stipulation with this is that you must have SoFi Plus. And I told you about that. 2 different ways to have SoFi Plus. Quickest way, of course, is going to be that $10 a month to obtain SoFi Plus. The other way is to have direct deposit. Of course, that could take a little while to get started depending on how quick that happens with your employer. But once you have that going, then you can get SoFi Plus. Now there's a date stipulation with this as well. They have this promotion going on up to September 3rd, 2025. So this video is going out live on September 1st, 2025, first of the month. However, this promotion, you have to open the account by September 3rd, 2025. Now, they may extend this promotion. That's definitely a possibility. I've seen SoFi do things like that before. We have a promotion going on, they bring it back or they extend it. So just wanted to briefly go over this APY boost with SoFi, where you can earn up to 4.50% APY. Now, calculation example for this one, if you had $25,000 in the SoFi high yield savings account at 3.80% APY with the interest compounding monthly, after 1 month, you would earn about $77.71 worth of interest on that $25,000. And here we have the next account. It's the Betterment Cash Reserve account at 4% APY. There's a $10 minimum initial deposit required to open this account, and the interest is compounded and credited monthly. And with Betterment, you can have up to $2 million of FDIC insurance. Now, Betterment also has a promotion going on to have an increased APY. Previously, they had this promotion going on where you can get up to 4.50% because the boost was 0.50%. However, currently they have a boost going on of 0.65%. Let me show and tell you about this one. So if you open the cash reserve account and make a qualifying deposit, you'll get the 0.65% boost on your savings through January 15th, 2026. And your boost stays locked in even if their base rate changes. So like the SoFi one as well, you get that boost no matter what's going on with their standard high yield savings account APY. So this one is a little bit easier to obtain. There's no direct deposit requirement or anything like that. So I wanted to show you about that one as well, because that is a nice boost if you're new to Betterment and you're thinking about having an account with them. But now let me give you a calculation example for that 4% that Betterment currently has on their cash reserve account. If you had $25,000 in that account with the interest compounding monthly, after 1 month, that $25,000 would turn into about $25,081.87. And now for the next honorable mention here, we have the Wealthfront Cash account at 4% APY. There's a $1 minimum initial deposit required to open this account, and the interest is compounded and credited monthly. And Wealthfront has the highest FDIC insurance coverage available that I've seen, where you can have up to $8 million of FDIC insurance. So calculation example for this one, I got it up here on the screen, is the same as the previous account. After 1 month with that $25,000, you would earn about $81.87 worth of interest. Now let's move on to the next account here. It is the CIT Bank Platinum Savings account at 4% APY. There's a $100 minimum initial deposit required to open this account, and that 4% APY is on balances of $5,000 and more. So if your balance is under $5,000 with CIT Bank for the Platinum Savings account, then your APY is only going to be 0.25%. Now, CIT Bank offers a Savings Connect account that has an APY of 3.90% no matter what your balance is. Same initial deposit requirement of $100, but if you don't have up to $5,000 and you want to have a high yield savings account with CIT Bank, you can still get a high APY with the Savings Connect account instead of the Platinum Savings account. Now, with the CIT Bank Platinum Savings account, the interest is compounded daily and credited monthly. Now, calculation example for this one, if you had $25,000 in the CIT Bank Platinum Savings account at 4% APY with the interest compounding daily, after 1 month, you would earn about $82 of interest. And we have one more honorable mention here. It's going to be the popular direct online savings account. Now, this account is actually increases APY since it was featured on my video in July 2025. So yes, Popular Direct has increased their online savings account APY from 4.05% up to 4.10%. Yeah, it's only 0.05%, but an increase is an increase. In this environment we're in with savings accounts and the Fed fund rate and all that, seeing an increase is definitely not common. With this account, there's a $100 initial minimum deposit required to open it, and the interest is compounded daily and credited monthly. Calculation example for this one, if you had $25,000 in the Popular Direct online savings account at 4.10% APY with the interest compounding daily, after 1 month, that $25,000 would turn into about $25,083.89. And now let's move on to some accounts that got kicked out of the top 10 because they decreased their APY. First up here, we have the Basque Bank Interest Savings account. Previously, this account was at 4.20% APY. However, in the past couple of months, they've lowered it down to 4.15% APY. There's no initial minimum deposit required to open this account, but you must fund the account within 15 days of opening. They do mention that on Basque Bank. A lot of banks do have kind of certain time frames for it, but Basque Bank, I noticed this on their site. So they possibly may close your account if you don't fund it within that time frame. Now, with this account, the interest is compounded daily and credited monthly. Calculation example for this one, $25,000 in the Basque Bank Interest Savings account at 4.15% APY with the interest compounding daily. After 1 month, you would earn about $84.93 worth of interest. Now let's move on to the next account that's out of the top 10 is the Open Bank High Yield Savings Account. Previously, this account was at 4.30% APY. However, in the past couple of months, it's been lowered down to 4.20%. There's a $500 minimum initial deposit required to open this account, and the interest is compounded and credited monthly. Calculation example for this one, $25,000 in the Open Bank High Yield Savings Account at 4.20% APY with the interest compounding monthly. After 1 month, you would earn about $85.63 on that $25,000. Now to another account that's got kicked out of the top 10. It is the Premise Personal Savings Account. Previously, a couple of months ago, this account was at 4.35% APY. However, it's since been lowered down to 4.20% APY. There's a $1 minimum initial deposit required to open this account, and the interest is compounded and credited monthly. Up to $2 million of FDIC insurance available with the Premise Savings Account. Calculation example for this one, same as the previous account. After 1 month of that $25,000, you would earn about $85.63. And now for the last account that was bumped out of the top 10 list from July 2025, it is the Lending Club Level Up Savings Account. Previously, this account was at 4.40%. However, it's since been lowered down to 4.20%. There's no minimum initial deposit required to open this account, and the requirement to obtain that APY listed is that you have to have a deposit of at least $250 per month in order to obtain that 4.20% APY. If you miss a month, then the APY is going to be 3.20%. However, you can get it back up to that 4.20% if you start to make that deposit again of at least $250 per month. And with this account, the interest is compounded and credited monthly. Calculation example for this account is going to be the same as the previous account. So on that $25,000 with this account, you would earn about $85.63 of interest after 1 month. And now let's get into the top 10 list. At number 10, we have a tie. First up here, we're starting with the Ivy Bank High Yield Savings Account at 4.25% APY. There's a $2,500 initial minimum deposit requirement to open this account, and you have to have a balance of at least $2,500 in order to obtain that APY that's currently listed at 4.25%. And there is a $1 million maximum balance on this account. If your balance goes under that $2,500, then your APY will go down to just 0.05%. And with this account, the interest is compounded daily and credited monthly. Calculation example for this one, if you had $25,000 in this Ivy Bank High Yield Savings Account at 4.25% APY, after 1 month, you would earn about $86 of interest. Let's move on to the next account that's tied at number 10. It is the Poppy Bank Premier Savings Account at 4.25% APY. The minimum balance on this one in order to obtain that 4.25% APY is $1,000. And with the interest, it is compounded daily and credited monthly. And a small print note on this account I saw is that they state that electronic statements must be activated in order to avoid the $5 paper statement fee. Calculation example for this one, same as the previous account. On $25,000 in this account, you would earn about $86 of interest after 1 month. Now, another account tied at number 10 is the Bread Financial High Yield Savings Account. Previously, though, this account was at 4.30% a couple of months ago. However, it's since been lowered down to 4.25%. There's a $100 minimum initial deposit requirement to open this account, and the interest is compounded daily and credited monthly. Calculation example for this one, $25,000 in this account at 4.25% after 1 month would earn you about $86.81 of interest. Now let's move on to number 9. We have another tie. First up here, we have the Western Alliance Bank High Yield Savings Premier Account. Now, a couple of months ago, this account was at 4.25% APY. However, it's since been increased to 4.30% APY. So once again, just a 0.05% for the increase of this account. Like Popular Direct, and they raised theirs 0.05%, but an increase is an increase. It is nice to see that here and there in this environment we're in. With this Western Alliance High Yield Savings Account, there's a $500 minimum initial deposit requirement to open this account, and the interest is compounded and credited monthly. Calculation example for this one, if you had $25,000 in this Western Alliance Bank High Yield Savings Account at 4.30% APY with the interest compounding monthly, after 1 month, you would earn about $87.71 of interest on that $25,000. And let's move on to the the next account that's tied at number 9, it is the My Banking Direct High Yield Savings Account at 4.30% APY. There's a minimum $500 initial deposit requirement to open this account and a balance of at least $1 to earn that APY of 4.30%. With this account, the interest is compounded and credited monthly. So calculation example for this one's going to be the same as the previous account. You would earn about $87 worth of interest on $25,000 in this account as well. Let's move on to the next account that's tied at number 9. It is the Everbank Performance Savings Account at 4.30% APY. There's no minimal initial deposit required to open this account, and with this one, the interest is compounded daily and credited monthly. Calculation example for this one, $25,000 in the Everbank Performance Savings Account at 4.30% APY with the interest compounding daily. After 1 month, you would earn about $87.86 of interest on that $25,000. And now we have another account tied at number 9. It is the Brio Direct High Yield Savings Account at 4.30% APY. There's a minimal initial deposit requirement of at least $5,000 to open this account and a balance of at least $25 to earn that APY of 4.30%. With this account, the interest is compounded daily and credited each statement cycle, which is monthly. It just depends on where it's going to land on that month, depending on the statement cycle. So calculation example for this account, same as the previous account with the interest compounding daily, $25,000 in this account at 4.30% after 1 month would earn you about $87.86 of interest. Now let's move on to number 8 on the list. That is going to be the VO Bank Online Savings Account at 4.31% APY. There's a minimum $100 initial deposit required to open this account, and there's a $5 monthly fee on this account if you receive paper statements. However, you can opt out of that. With this account, the interest is compounded daily and credited monthly. Calculation example for this one, if you had $25,000 in this VO Bank Online Savings Account at 4.31% APY with the interest compounding daily, after 1 month, you would earn about $88.07 of interest on that $25,000. Let's move on to number 7 here. It's going to be the New Tech Bank High Yield Savings Account at 4.35% APY. There's no minimum initial deposit requirement to open this account, and the interest is compounded daily and credited monthly. Calculation example for this one, if you had $25,000 in the New Tech Bank High Yield Savings Account at 4.35% APY with that interest compounding daily, after 1 month, you would earn about $88.90 of interest on that $25,000. And now let's move on to number 6. We have the Eagle Bank High Yield Savings Account at 4.40% APY. There's a minimum open deposit requirement of $1,000, and that APY of 4.40% is for balances between $0 and $500,000. If your balance is over $500,000, then that amount is going to get an APY of 0.01%. With this account, the interest is compounded daily and credited monthly. Calculation example for this one, if you had $25,000 in the Eagle Bank High Yield Savings Account at 4.40% APY with the interest compounding daily, after 1 month, you would earn about $89.95 of interest on that $25,000. And now let's move on to number 5 on the list. Is going to be the Total Bank Money Market Deposit Account at 4.41% APY. Now this is a money market account, so it's not technically a savings account. However, there is a lot in common with a savings account with this money market account with Total Bank. There's more functionality typically with money market accounts compared to high yield savings accounts in terms of having, a debit card and be able to have ATM access and things like that. Now there are high yield savings accounts with an ATM card that have that access. I actually have a top video on those accounts. I'll leave it linked down in the description. High yield savings accounts with ATM cards. But with the Total Bank Money Market account, it meets all the items in the common features section as well, like I listed in that section of the video. Now with this account, there's a $25,000 minimum initial deposit required to open it. That's one of the main differences right there with this money market account compared to the other high yield savings account, is that high initial deposit requirement. It's the highest on this list. Now, stipulation with this account for that APY, you have to have a balance of at least $2,500 to earn that APY of 4.41%. And there is $1 million account maximum for this one. Now, with the interest on this account, it's compounded daily and credited monthly. Calculation example for this one, if you had $25,000 in this Total Bank Money Market Deposit Account at 4.41% APY with the interest compounding daily, after After 1 month, you would earn about $90.16 of interest on that $25,000. And now let's move on to number 4 on the list. It is going to be the Axos Bank Axos One savings account. Now, a couple of months ago, this account was at 4.66% APY. However, it's since been lowered down to 4.46% APY. There's no minimum initial deposit requirement to open this account, and the interest is compounded daily and credited monthly. Now, requirement in order to obtain that APY with this account is that you must also have an Axos One checking account and meet one of the requirements. Now, for those requirements, you have 2 options. You can either do option 1, which is receive at least $1,500 in total monthly qualifying direct deposits and maintain an average daily balance of more than $1,500 in your Axos One checking account. That's option 1. Option 2 is that you must receive at least $5,000 in total monthly qualifying deposits and maintain an average daily balance of more than $5,000 in your Axos One checking account. Now, both of these requirements are for the Axos One checking account. So you have to have the Axos One checking account and also meet one of those requirements in order to obtain that 4.46% APY on the Axos One savings account. So meeting one of those options is a requirement for the Axos One savings account to obtain that 4.46% APY. If you don't meet one of those requirements, then the APY that's standard on this account with Axos is 1%. Now let me give you a calculation example of that 4.46% though. $25,000 in the Axos One savings account at 4.46% APY with the interest compounding daily. After 1 month, you would earn about $90.99 worth of interest on that $25,000. Now let's move on to number 3 on the list. It is the Presidential Bank Advantage Savings Account at 4.50% APY. There's a $5,000 initial minimum deposit requirement to open this account, and the interest is compounded and credited monthly. Now, a requirement for the APY on this account is that you must have a Presidential Bank Advantage checking account open as well. If you have that open, then you can obtain that 4.50% APY on the Advantage Savings Account with Presidential Bank. Now, Presidential Bank is another bank on this list that offers the higher FDIC insurance available in the $1 million range. You can have up to $5 million in FDIC insurance coverage with your Advantage Savings Account at Presidential Bank. Calculation example for this one, if you had $25,000 in a Presidential Bank Advantage Savings Account at 4.50% APY with the interest compounding monthly, after 1 month, you would earn about $91.67 of interest on that $25,000. Now let's move on to number 2 on the list. It is the Pi Bank Online Savings Account at 4.60% APY. There's no minimal initial deposit requirement to open this account, and the interest is compounded daily and credited monthly. Now, calculation example for this one, if you had $25,000 in the Pi Bank Online Savings Account at 4.60% APY with the interest compounding daily, after 1 month, you would earn about $94.13 of interest on that $25,000. Now, something I saw about the Pi Bank Online Savings Account that's a red flag to me, a reason why I would not open it personally, I want to tell you about. So in the fine print, they state that the Pi Bank Savings does not generate or accept ACH transfers, including micro deposits. They state that to fund your Pi Bank Savings Account, you can transfer money using Plaid or wire transfers. So I know for some people, they don't like using Plaid, and that's understandable. And then the other option is wire transfers. I've used Plaid some. I don't have an issue with it personally. Some accounts I link to Plaid, some I don't. Just a personal thing. I'm just like, have certain accounts that I'll link and so forth. However, the next part of the fine print is the reason why I personally would not use this account. They state in the fine print that outgoing transfers can only be made through a wire transfer. They state that while Pi Bank does not charge fees for wire transfers, your bank may apply fees for both incoming and outgoing wire transfers. And they also state, additionally, Pi Bank Savings does not support payments through Bill Pay or Zelle. So the outgoing transfer is an issue for me, not because I'm like anti-wire transfers or anything like that. I've done wire transfers before, selling houses, getting paid, via wire transfer. It's a common thing. And actually one time I did not get paid because the company I was working with messed up one number on my wire transfer and I did not get it, but it was resolved. Basically, they admitted to the mistake. They were nice about it and everything. And I got the money a little bit delayed than when I normally would have got it, but wire transfers. So I'm not against wire transfers. I know they happen. I know they're possible, but typically for, high yield savings accounts, checking accounts, you can just do external transfers, transfer money in, transfer it out via external transfer, no issue. Every other high yield savings account I've had before, I have the ability to transfer out from it, to an external bank account without issue. Just a regular ACH transfer, no cost, fine. This one having the only option of an outgoing transfer via wire transfer is a bit odd to me. Some people may be fine with it, and that's fine. This could be the account for you. But I did want to mention that because I feel like there are going to be many other people out there like me who are not going to be a fan of that. So wanted to tell you about that in the fine print. Now, let's move on to number 2 on the list. It is going to be the Varo High Yield Savings Account at 5% APY. There's no minimum initial deposit requirement to open this account, and the interest is compounded daily and credited monthly. Not so fine print on this. They pretty much state it all over the website, so they don't try to hide or anything. That 5% APY is on balances of up to $5,000 once requirements are met. The APY is going to be 2.5% for the rest that's over the $5,000 if you meet the requirements. So if you meet the requirements, which I'll get into and tell you about, then you can earn 5% on your balance up to $5,000, and anything over that would have the APY of 2.50%. Now, if you don't meet the requirements I'm going to tell you about, then your APY on your whole balance amount will be 2.50% for your Varo High Yield Savings Account. Now, what are those requirements to obtain that 5% APY? Here it is. The step 1, of course, is to open a Varo bank account and savings account. Step 2 is to receive direct deposits of at least $1,000 by the end of each month. And step 3 is to make sure your accounts aren't negative at the end of the month. So those are the requirements right there to obtain that 5% APY on up to $5,000. Let me give you a calculation example for this account, and then I'm going to tell you about some fine print on this one that you should know about as well. Now, calculation example for this one, if you had $5,000 in the Varo High Yield Savings Account with the interest compounding daily, after 1 month, you would earn about $20.37 of interest on that $5,000. Now, the fine print that I want to tell you about is right here. I'm gonna put it up on the screen. Varo states that money can't be transferred from your Varo savings account to an external account. A savings transfer will need to be completed to transfer from your Varo bank account. So this is an issue for me as well, kind of a little loop you have to jump through in order to transfer out from your high yield savings account. So basically what you have to do is transfer your money that you want to transfer out from your high yield savings account to your other Varo bank account, and then you could transfer it out from there. So another extra step. I'm not sure exactly why they make you do this, but it's something I wanted to tell you about because I know some people may have an issue with this. They may deter them from opening the account. Don't want anybody to, be disappointed, open an account and find out something pretty important about external transfers being kind of an issue. Some people may see this and go, oh, that's fine. I'll do that. And totally get it. So I wanted to show and tell you about that fine print right there, because that is different than many high yield savings accounts out there. Most of the accounts out there, except for the, number 2 and number 1 on this list, most of the accounts out there, you could transfer out externally from the savings account to an external bank account or an internal bank account, no issue. So yeah, that's number 1 on the list if you have those requirements met. And that is it with the video right here on the top 10 savings accounts ranked by APY for September 2025. Hope you all enjoyed the video. Take care.